Well, here we are. It is Tuesday, the 31st of March. And this week, we're going to try and get some videos out going over the price results from all the assorted sales that took place during Asia Week in New York during March. We're just Many of them ended just in the last week or so, and overall the market looked awfully good. There were some very good results at all the auction houses. At Doyle's had good results. As we've discussed, they had a number of pieces that did extremely well. Freemans had very good results, and that's what we're going to discuss today. Sotheby's had great results. Christie's had good results, and Bottoms had good results. And it shows a real strength in the collector market. And it also displayed some different strategies and how estimates are being done. I noticed that at the Christie sale, they seem to be going for the absolute lowest estimates they could possibly get, because many of their lots went way above the estimates, and that's by design. That wasn't that they didn't know what the pieces would bring. They probably did, but they like, it's auction houses always like to say it sold for 3 times estimate. We sold this for 4 times estimate, 2 times the estimate. It's good advertising. It's a good pitch for potential consigners and so forth. But anybody that looked at that Christie sale beforehand and saw the estimates they were giving, you would have been scratching your head a little bit. But it worked. They did great. They got good results. Sotheby's got very good results. And now we're going to talk today about the Freeman sale, which took place on the 27th of March, just a couple of days ago. And overall, it did great. And we're going to go back through. We'll take a look at some of the lots we had previewed in the sale and a few others that we didn't, that did particularly well, and just to sort of get into them. All right. So let's start with this. The Chinese robe with the roundels on it. We had commented last week that the 6,000 to 8,000 estimate seemed very reasonable. Obviously, it was. It ended up going for about $65,000. And in the past, we've seen similar robes sell for 15,000, 10,000, 18,000, and so forth. But this one, I think, because of its condition, it looked to be in absolutely phenomenal condition. And condition, especially with silks and porcelains, things where a little bit of damage causes a big impact on value. This was a case where, as close as I could tell, it was absolutely in basically like new condition, probably dated to the Guangxu periods or the late 19th century somewhere. But wonderful quality, beautifully done, unfaded colors and all that, had everything going for it. And you could always want to look up here around the collar, around the back. If these robes are worn a lot, they start to get a little bit, they get to bring on the collar, as they say, from neck sweat and so forth. And this looked like it had never been worn, so that may have driven the price, and it may just be great yellow ones don't turn up very often. Yellow, after all, is an imperial color. So there you go. All right, now over to the painting by Zhu Shang, the transitional period painter. This had a very modest estimate because it was probably an attribution, but obviously people looked at it and said, no, that's a real one. So it ended up going for about $140,000, $135,000 on a $2,000 to $3,000 estimate. It's a wonderful painting, very classically done, a beautiful ink work all the way down, nicely shaded ground. Had a lot going on there, the marks. The workmanship on it was really quite excellent. The drawing style was superb, very, very typical of a Ming and mid 1700s or mid 1600s work. All right, so that bravo on that. That did great. And then hopping along over to this, there was this painting by Zhang Daquan. It was estimated at 100 to 150,000. His work has an enormous following these days, especially this style that he did with the blues and the greens and the blacks. It's very striking work. Wonderful looking mountain landscape with the way he represented the light on it and so forth. It's inscribed, sealed in 2 places, and it did great. It ended up going for well over its high estimate of 150,000, selling for 220 plus the premium. So you're up around 280,000. Almost, that's pretty close to doubling the high estimate. But a great work. And again, one of the most in-demand painters of the 20th century. So you're going to get these kinds of prices. And then over to this, the little Wanley water dropper. We talked about this a lot because I thought it was a rare bird. They don't turn up very often, but often with rare birds, unusual forms, the forms you've never seen before, or you don't see very often. When people go hunting for valuations, especially people who are speculating in the market, they look on the auction results, they go through things and they look and they see what other similar examples have sold for. And I think you're going to have a very long search trying to find a Wanley period blue and white water dropper in the form of a conch. Uh, so you sort of have to base your decision on value on other water droppers and so try to get a feeling for it somehow. And I think that was why it did fine in the end. It ended up going with the premium about at the top of the estimate. I thought it might go for a bit more because it's a very rare type. And that scholar collectors sometimes will dive into things, but also admitting that if collectors can't find a comp for something, they get a little weak in the bidding. Their bidding gets a little bit weak, which is too bad because you miss out on things sometimes. Something you'd really enjoy owning, but you couldn't find the right price, so you didn't reach for it too much. You sort of said, well, that's the estimate, and I don't know what the other ones sell for, so they end up selling reasonably. And I think this was a very, very reasonable buy for what that is. I thought that was a great buy. And then over to this, the Daguan Marken period bowl. As we said when we looked at it originally, we thought the estimate was extremely modest, 3,000 to 5,000. There was the Roseberry sale, you may recall, a couple of years ago, where they found all those Daguan and Caijing bowls and so forth, and I think there were some Guangzhou bowls in that house in England. They were stacked up on there was that wonderful photograph they had of them stacked up on these wooden shelves in a pantry in this house. And they did great, and we thought based on that the estimate was low, and in the end it was. This ended up going for 14 or 15,000 with the premium. It could have gone for maybe a little bit more. I don't know, but I thought the price was very, very good. Just the same, 14. What was the 3 times 9 for? About 13,000, I guess, for the bowl, which is, of course, 2.5 times its high estimate. So that was a good result. Nice looking bowl, nice colors, beautifully done, and apparently was in great shape. And then over to this, the copper red glazed Yongshen marked vase, possibly of the period. When we looked at it, it looked like it was period to us. When we looked at this, the way the foot rim is done, the way the bottom of it is formed, the color of the glaze, that very, very elegant red color, almost like heading almost towards peach bloom, beautifully done, but nicely potted too, a good form. It wasn't a terribly big vase, of course. It was only, what was it, 9 inches or something? Did he put the height in there? There was a height in there. I don't remember where it is. 11 inches, maybe 11 inches tall. There's no mention of it. Anyway, I think it was about 10 or 11 inches tall. It wasn't a big vase, regardless. Ended up going great. It ended up going for about almost $20,000, which indicates that the audience, people that looked at it, felt that it was probably period. If this was just a nice 18th century vase in this style, without the mark, not mark and period, it probably would have gone for around the bottom of the estimate, if that. It might not have even brought that. So the estimate was 8 to 12, sold for 14 plus premium. That brings it into around 18 or 19,000, which seems fine to me. And then over to this, these very handsome dragon chargers. These were enormous, and I should have mentioned them in the preview because they were so big. These things are 20 1/8 inches in diameter. These were very, very large dishes, and they're late Qing examples. There's no marks on the back. Here they are. They're most likely, the pattern, of course, is most likely from the Guangzhou period. The pairs of dragons chasing the pearl, but very large, impressive size, 20 inches. And they both appeared to be in very, very good condition, which is a bit unusual for these. When you get into porcelain plates this big, they are very prone to cracking. Just the slightest tap can crack one of these things. And these were magnificent and huge, huge. 20 inches a piece. Those are like Japanese amari dishes from the Meiji period. They got that big, very, very big. And the estimate was 10 to 15,000, which is sort of a safe estimate. And they ended up going for around 45,000, including the buyer's premium. But again, 20-inch plates. These were enormous, and they're pair. So you're going to get premium. You're going to get a premium result for that. And then over to this, the Jin de Yuan Dynasty a tripod sensor, beautiful glaze on it. And Ben Farina had commented that a lot of people thought these were sung. This was a sung pot. And judging by this, it certainly looks to be very, very likely to be sung. The way the feet are glazed in this recessed hole in the bottom, but the way the feet are done and so forth in that very rich color. It would be late sung, but very possibly sung. And I think that's what drove the price. It was estimated at 4 to 6, which would have been a reasonable estimate for Jin de Yuan Dynasty, which are, of course, later examples of these Junyao type porcelains or pottery. But 35,000 plus the premium pushes up to about 44,000, 45,000, indicates that the consensus was that it's probably a late Southern Sung thing. But beautifully done, beautiful glaze, and the audience loved it. That's all you can say. All right, and then hopping over to this, we had talked about this because I love the shape of it so much. I thought it was so beautifully potted and so beautifully and evenly glazed. You'll notice how finely done the rim is at the top here, at the top of the bowl, and then the very, very even color. Had a lot going for it. I thought it was a really, really nice piece. And we thought the estimate was extremely reasonable. We speculated, I think we thought maybe 10 to 14,000 for it. Ended up going for 15,000 plus the premium. So you're really up around about $19,000 for this. But it's an extremely fine example, and it's got a lot of characteristics that a lot of collectors find very desirable. The finely potted rim, very thinly done, very even glaze, and beautifully shaped. The shape of this was excellent. And a very nice, proud foot holding it all up. I thought it was very good. And then over to this. This was that underglaze. Well, it was a red with white glaze dragon dish. Very unusual dish. These are extremely unusual. You don't see these very often. Probably dated to the 18th century. They called it 18th or 19th century. Hard to say. But the price indicates that the audience thought it was probably 18th century. And probably maybe mid 18th century, judging by the $26,000 with a $2,000 to $3,000 estimate. But this is a very rare type. The pattern is well known. You're more likely to see this in underglaze blue, but seeing it with this copper red or iron red design, I think is quite striking. And how big was this? 8 or 9 inches? 8 and 5/8 inches in diameter. So it wasn't particularly big, but it was very unusual and very pretty, and it was a sort of an alternate version to the blue and white examples that you see around, where the white glaze underneath forms the decoration, and then they overglaze it with red to act like almost like a cameo, like a cutout, like almost like a cameo effect to the white part. Very attractive. And then there was the Korean painting of the King of Hell. A neat picture, and I thought it was striking. But Korean paintings these days are extremely unpredictable. The Korean market is all over the place. You have pieces that should sell that don't. I think Christie's or Bonhams or somebody had a bunch of Korean things, and they hardly sold at all. And then you have this very nice early painting, probably 18th century, Joseon period, estimated at 3,000 to 5,000, which is a fair estimate. Ended up going for about 18,000 with the buyer's premium. But a very, very handsome, striking picture, very classically done, very typical of mid-18th century paintings. The colors all look good, nicely framed in an old frame. There you go. So that was a good thing to buy. And then over to the big carved wood feeder of the Lohuan Ming Dynasty. It had an estimate of 8,000 to 12,000, and often we see these wood figures sell for, in this size, sell for that. It was pretty good size, as I recall. Yeah, it was about 2 feet, 2.5, 3 feet. It was 4 feet tall. It was a big one. And it did extremely well. It blew the estimate to bits, ended up going for about $65,000, including the premium. But the carving on it was exceptional, especially the facial characteristics of the figure. A very sort of exaggerated, puffy, very, very accentuated face, the furrowed brow, the big eyebrows going up over the puffy cheeks, the very sharp, precise eyes sort of casting downward, wonderful facial expression, and then the folds of the robes sort of very loosely carved, draping down over the figure and so forth. This is quite a good thing. He's missing his feet, of course, but that often happened on these because they were added. They made these in components. The feet would have been, applied separately. Often the hands are applied. All of it doesn't come from a single block. They use different pieces and then they fit it together like a puzzle. But this was a heck of a nice carving, very, very attractive, and it had a good surface on it too. The surface on it was really nice. So you got a heck of a price for it, $65,000. I don't think it's crazy. I think it's a very handsome piece of wood. And the other thing is it has a crack in it down at the bottom, but no big cracks going through the body or the head. Cracks in bodies and heads discourage bidders. This didn't appear to have any, so that did great. And then the bronze lion mounts. These were 17th or early 18th century, but very attractive. Loved the facial expressions on these guys, and the gilding was all intact. The casting work was excellent, and these would have been, to go on, to be mounted on something. There's the backs of them right there, and they measured. They were pretty good sizes, I recall, 8¼ inches in length. They were estimated at $2,000 to $3,000, which seemed very reasonable, and they ended up going for about $14,000 with the premium. But I think they were well worth it. I thought they were awfully attractive. They're a pair, good quality, good detail. The gilding was in good shape, no damage, and probably transitional period or just a little after, but very attractive. And then over to this, the little Korean bronze. I just like this guy. I like the facial expression. There, the Bodhisattva. He almost had the face of an Incan. He almost looks like an Incan or a Mayan carving, which we if you may recall, we did a short on that. One of our YouTube video shorts was about this a carving that was a Mayan carving that had all these elements on it that were Chinese at the base. It was a very mysterious thing, and it's in a museum in I think in Mexico. But anyway, the facial characteristics are very much like this Korean figure. Very nicely done. Little turquoise stones mounted in the head. Lots of activity going on. The hands were intact. And the body, of course, with Korean, they tended to make the bodies look a little bit bigger sometimes like this. I liked it a lot. I just thought it was a nice thing. Ended up going for $5,000 plus the premium, about $6,500 on the upper end of the estimate. Rather attractive and measured. Well, how tall was this? Probably about 10 inches tall. Do they include the dimensions? I don't see the dimensions in there. I'm going to assume it's probably about 10 inches tall. But I love the patina also on it. It was very good. All right, and so that sort of was it. Oh, there was this. This was the Fu Lions. We did mention these. I just thought these were so powerful looking. Extremely, they were done by Yoshikawa Yosuyuki, Yosuyoshi, not Yosuyuki, Yosuyoshi, Meiji period. But the patina on these was superb, and the casting was superb, all the way around. There's the bottom, there's the front view of them. These were extremely nice, and in the end, they did very, very well. They ended up going for $17,000 plus the premium with a $3,000 to $5,000 estimate. Now, $17,000 of the premium would put them up around $21,000 or $2,000. But they were very large. They were 25 inches tall. These were 2 feet tall each. So those are nice big presentation pieces. And I thought they were one of the standouts in the sale. They didn't bring the highest price in the sale, of course, but I thought they were visually one of the most successful pair of objects in the sale itself. And then at the end, you also had this very nice late Tang carving, pottery carving or stone carving, $60,000 plus premium, or around, that brings it up to about almost $80,000 with the buyer's premium, $78,000, with a $5,000 to $7,000 estimate. And I don't know why they were estimated so low. It might be because Tang things haven't been bringing enormous amounts of money lately. though the Sotheby's sale had some good results on, or Christie's had some good results on some very rare Tang pottery. They had some very rare examples, so they did pretty well. But this was, I thought, very striking. I thought the facial features were excellent. It's very three-dimensional in its appearance. And overall, it's in quite good condition. A lot of the pigment's gone. It was probably all colored originally, but the very classic Tang hairstyle of the women here standing over a pot concocting something. I think it's just a charming scene, and it was a pretty good sized plaque. I think they did put the dimensions in on this, if as I recall, maybe over on their other site. I think the screen was about 20 inches tall, as I recall from the listing, 25 inches or something. Anyway, very nice. So overall, this is just an indication. I mean, they had some lots that didn't sell. Every sale had something that didn't sell. None of them are, they call a white glove sale, where everything goes through. But it was the sell-through rate, I think, was something they should be happy with, especially on the really interesting and spectacular pieces. It drew a lot of attention, as we saw that very fine Trende blue and white jar that went at Sotheby's for over $4 million, doubling its high estimate because it was rare, possibly unique, and beautifully done. If you look at the newsletter page over on the Bidamount website today, we put together a post on there using Regina Crowell's. Was it Regina Crowell or Rose Kerr? Regina Crowell did it, I think, of a description of that pot with all of the images. So you could go through and read it, because it's quite a lengthy write-up she did on that piece. And there's a lot of very good information in there, as always. So check that out. But overall, the Freeman sale, I think, did just great. Some of the other paintings in there did awfully well. So I think this all bodes pretty well. Right now, it's going to be very quiet for a while, just as a warning to everybody. There won't be a lot going on. Eldred's has a good sale of Chinese export wares coming up, and I'm going to try to do something on that in the next day or two, put out a quick video about it. It's a good-looking sale. There's a lot of unusual pieces in there. A few of the pieces have restoration, so you're going to get condition reports. Get a hold of Joshua out at Eldred's and ask him, about for condition reports and so forth. But it's a good-looking sale. Eldred's on Cape Cod in about a week. A little over a week from now, I think on the 8th or the 9th of April. But we'll get to that hopefully in the next day or two. Anyway, that's it for now. Have a great week. We'll be back with more as soon as we get to them. And thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. Join us over on Patreon. We got a couple of new subscribers just yesterday on Patreon. And if you're watching, welcome. And on we go. All right. Bye-bye.